Hey guys, welcome back. So we're getting along pretty well on the Ascutney 1 prep work, but now we need to give the car some attention. I'm going to start with the exhaust, starting with the exhaust manifold, and I'll show you why exactly. Alright, so I made the mistake of trusting CX Racing, and after 2 events, hopefully you'll be able to see it. It's got 2, well actually, each of these runners is severely cracked on their weld points. And I have a flex pipe and I have plenty of relief in the back of the manifold, but yeah, it's just horribly manufactured. And they offered me absolutely no support on this at all. Their customer support was terrible. So I got 2 race events out of this, and I had to fabricate an entire exhaust to make it work. And now I'm pretty much just going back to a stock style with a racing beat manifold. Let's get to it. Alright, we'll give that a few minutes to soak. We're using PB Blaster on these bolts because they've basically been sitting all winter, and I think they're going to be a little bit seized up. Okay, I've given those a little bit of time to set and started loosening up some of the bolts. Now, I didn't mention this before, but this is one of the worst designed manifolds to install and uninstall possible. I don't know how they could have made it worse. So you can't fit a socket on any of the bolts, not even a single one, and you can't fit a closed end wrench on any of them either. You just don't have enough clearance. The bolt heads are in the way, and the runners are too tight to the bolts. So I've loosened up all of the manifold nuts. They weren't too bad. They were only sitting for 1 winter, and they only had to last through 2 race events, which is probably 15 or 20 minutes of racing. But because I can't fit a closed end wrench or a socket on any of these bolts because they engineered it so badly, I've got to do about a quarter turn at a time with the open-ended wrench. So this is going to take me about a half hour just to get these manifold bolts off. Let me share the brilliance of this design with you. Forgot about this, but when we were first installing this, we realized about halfway through that you can't fit the nut on if the manifold is actually on the head. You've got to put it halfway on and then wiggle the manifold onto it and get the nut on before you've actually tightened anything down. We've already packed up my impact socket for O2s and the impact gun. So I've got to find a different way to impact this now. And the hammer's been working great. As long as I can clear the airbox coming out, this should go pretty smoothly from here on in. Okay, there we go. One very dirty narrowband O2 sensor. We'll reuse that with the new manifold. Hopefully, with some luck, I'll be able to take this out now. Let me get some gloves. Now, one thing that I've learned in the few years of racing that I've been doing is that the most important thing on a car is reliability. The second most important thing is how easy it is to service. So something like this does not belong on a race car at all. If you miss a run because it takes you 6 hours to change a manifold, you're doing something wrong. Rethink your life decisions. Alright, I am hung up on the O2 sensor bung. Looks like Okay, there we go. So this hose clamp was our last minute fix at Philo so that this wouldn't just rattle itself to pieces. It held up for a few runs at that event, but again, the manufacturing on this, the fabrication, whoever was holding the welder, they didn't know what they were doing. And whoever does QA for CX Racing probably shouldn't work there anymore. We've got cracks on almost every weld. Got one here, got a big one here, got one here, one here. And this had all the relief it could have just past this end here. So it could rattle around, the engine could move around, and this would be pretty isolated from that. But all of these welds are just really badly penetrated. They had the wrong amount of heat, and looks like they almost didn't use filler on some of them. And fusion welds for exhaust manifolds just aren't going to work. So, I can't think of anything that's good about this manifold. Not a single thing. And to replace it, we've got this Raceland, which is about a $150 manifold. They actually used filler material. The welds are completely penetrated. They even have overlapping tubes, so this tube fits into an extrusion on that tube, and it gives you a little bit more contact area. All around, this is a much better design. And we can even access all the bolts, so we can remove it at a race event if we need to. So here's the complete exhaust that I had to cobble together because that manifold is non-standard. And it basically just comes straight out the middle of the bumper or thereabouts. We'll see if we can get it to fit in a little bit more easily than that other one did. Okay, so it took a little finessing. We had to actually lift the engine a little bit, but the new manifold is on. The only thing that I need to do on the manifold is block off this EGR. I should be able to just use an NTP? Yeah, non-AN fitting on the end of that and just plug it up. I didn't really think about it ahead of time, otherwise I would have chopped it off and just welded the hole, but whatever, we'll make it work. Now I'm going to work on the back of the exhaust. So there are a couple of problems with the rear exhaust. I picked up some new rubber hangers to use with these hangers, but they don't quite line up perfectly. This is really, really cheap eBay exhaust. The build quality is pretty good, but the fit up's just not there. So I'm going to hack it apart a bit. I'm going to weld it back together, and hopefully I can get my welds as pretty as theirs are. They're actually quite nice for a $200 exhaust. But yeah, I gotta get to it. Tonight's the last night. These cuts don't need to be very pretty because they're pretty much just clearance cuts so that I can test fit them in the car. I'm gonna get back to that. Alright, it's getting dark. It's getting late enough that I don't really want to be grinding and welding while neighbors are home from work. So I'm going to put off the heavy lifting stuff of this until the morning. I've got most of the exhaust fitted up, and the seat now is mostly mounted. I have to do a little bit more welding for that tomorrow as well, so it's going to be an early morning, and yeah, we'll follow up with you then. We want to leave here, Manchester, around 11 in the morning to get it there at 1 so that we can help set up the hill and get all the safety equipment in place and everything, because these events don't happen without people helping. So as long as the two things left to do on the car are finished, yeah, we'll be there. We'll be there. Alright guys, we'll update you tomorrow.